Hello and welcome to Basingstoke Croquet Club. In this series of modules about golf croquet, we're going to be looking at the origins of the game, how it's played, how you yourself can perhaps improve your play. Golf croquet started around 100 years ago, but it really only took off in the 1980s or thereabouts as an alternative to association croquet, which was thought to be becoming too complicated for many people. Golf croquet is sometimes related to association croquet in the way that draughts is related to chess. It uses the same playing space but has a very different manner of playing and different tactics. The aim of golf croquet is for one side, and the side can either be two or one person, doubles or singles, to score a majority of the hoops on the lawn or the court. And in fact, most golf games are played around 13 hoops. There are 6 hoops on the lawn, so we go around twice, once clockwise and then anti-clockwise. And if need be, there is the deciding hoop, which is hoop 3, replayed. Unlike association croquet, where each ball has to run each hoop, in golf croquet, only one ball of the 4 needs to run a hoop, and that ball scores the hoop for its side. The peg in the centre of the lawn has no real role to play in golf croquet other than as an obstacle between some of the hoops and also as a marker of distance between the hoops. Its most useful function is because of the colours painted on it, and these are a reminder of the fact that in golf croquet balls must be played in correct order: blue, red, black and yellow. And if any mistake is made in the order of play, then that is a fault, and we'll talk about that in a later module. It often happens that 2 games are in process on the same lawn at the same time. It's called double banking. And so in order to differentiate between the balls in play, a different set of balls is used, usually called the secondary colours, as opposed to the primary colours. And these colours are green, pink, brown and white. And often people differentiate them by spring, summer, autumn and winter. And again, they're usefully delineated on the peg: green, pink, brown, white. If anyone is playing who has a colour vision deficiency, what we used to call colour blindness, they should be given the opportunity to play with primary colours rather than secondary colours, because these are more easily differentiated by people who have such a deficiency in vision. If you're going to play golf croquet at all seriously, you need to be passingly familiar with the rules of the game, as indeed you would with any other sport. And the rules are set out in this little book, The Rules of Golf Croquet, set up by the World Croquet Federation, and this is the 2014 edition. And it also contains commentaries by the Croquet Association on the interpretation of some of the rules. There is also quite a lot of information on the Croquet Association website, and the URL for that will be coming up on the screen, which will keep you up to date with any latest additions and changes to the rules. So we come to the tools of the trade, which is basically a mallet. And mallets come in various shapes and sizes. This is what you might call the standard production model mallet. It was made in New Zealand by George Wood, and it's a typical, what one might call a beginner's mallet. It weighs 3 pounds, it's got a 9-inch head, which is square these days, not the old-fashioned round ones, and it has quite a nice grip and balance to it. It's a good basic mallet, absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you want to step up a little way, this is a mallet made by John Hobbs in England, and as you notice, it's got a slightly narrower head than the wood mallet, and you can see it's perhaps 1/4 of an inch narrower or so, which actually helps in getting into hoops in tight spots. It also has a grip towards the bottom of the mallet, which is useful for association croquet, not so much for golf croquet. and it has an aluminium shaft which can be detached from the head if you're going overseas on an aircraft, which can be quite useful. And towards the top of the range, this is a mallet made by Manor House, which has a composite head with brass ends and a carbon fibre shaft, and you can get them with a joint in the middle of the shaft here, again to allow for airline travel, so the shaft comes into two parts for easy packing in a suitcase. Very much it's a question of what mallet suits you and how you suit the mallet. There is no right and wrong way about having a particular mallet. It's a question of finding one that suits you and then using it and practicing with it so that the mallet becomes very much part of the way that you play. You've got to be confident in the way that you're handling the mallet, in the weight of the shot that you're using, and knowing just how hard to hit the ball in order to put it in a particular place on the lawn. Having got your mallet, the next thing is how to hold it. Basically, you should try and hold the mallet as close to the top of it as possible. That means that you can get a good pendulum swing. You want the swing to be like a pendulum of a clock, measured and even. And you can best do that by having your hands together and at the top of the mallet. Many people like to play with one hand towards the centre of the shaft. Well, that's all very well. It gives them perhaps a feeling of greater confidence of hitting the ball, but what it does do is to make sure that the bottom hand is pushing the ball through rather than the mallet sweeping the ball through. That can get a bit tricky if you're trying to do a power shot where you're pushing the ball hard and you don't really get as much power into the ball as you would do if you had the full length of the shaft to swing with. So the grip is basically, if you're a right-hander like me, with your left hand at the top holding it like that and your right hand underneath it, and I put my index finger down the back of the mallet. Some people think that's not a good idea, but I find it helps to stabilise the shaft. The alternative, and that by the way is the standard grip. An alternative grip which many people like is the so-called Solomon grip. This was devised by the late John Solomon, probably the best croquet player of the 20th century, who when he first picked up a mallet at the age of 5 or 6, picked it up with both hands like that and never let go of it basically. He found that was a really useful grip. It is certainly extremely useful for power shots. It's remarkably good, remarkably accurate. Personally, I find it more difficult around the hoop in little dinky shots, but some people use this and that depending on the shot they're going to play. It's entirely up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. There is no right and wrong way of holding a mallet, but there are some ways that are better than others, shall we say. So how do we actually go about hitting balls? Well, in principle, it's very simple. Here is a ball, which I want to hit roughly in that direction. But I don't start from here. I start from back here. And what I'm doing, it's called stalking the ball. Some people seem to think it's an affectation. It isn't. The whole point of this is to get your feet in the right position. Because if your feet are wrong, you'll probably hit the ball squiff and you'll probably miss. And so by walking up to the ball like this, you make sure that your feet are parallel with the direction that you want the ball to go in. And then it's simply a question of letting the mallet swing over the ball gently a time or two and using the line on the mallet, the top of the mallet, to line the ball up with whatever object you're going to hit, whether it's another ball or a hoop. Then just sweeping through with plenty of follow through, because it's the follow through that puts some topspin on the ball, which makes the ball first of all go straighter, and secondly perhaps carries it through a hoop better than it might otherwise do. A typical situation in golf croquet is where an opponent ball, in this case the black, is in front of the hoop, and my ball, in this case the red ball, needs to hit it away. And you need to know how far each ball is going to run after you've hit them. And so just by way of demonstration, I'm going to hit the black ball away and we'll see how far the two balls go. So there the black ball has gone quite a long way across the lawn. The red ball is still here, fairly close to the hoop. And you notice where the red ball has ended up. It's moved perhaps 3 yards, just beyond the hoop. The black ball is now way over on the other side of the lawn. It's moved something like 15 yards from a fairly gentle shot. You don't have to put a lot of power into your shots in golf croquet, but you do have to be accurate. And accuracy rather than power often wins games. So it would now be black's turn, and one of the skills of golf croquet is being able to put that ball that's gone over there back in front of the hoop again to create pressure on the opponent. And golf croquet is really about keeping pressure on the opponent by having balls in front of the hoop in a hoop running position. So I'm going to go over there and play that ball, black ball back, and let's see if we can get it back in front of the hoop. So here we are with the black ball, and I need to get it back in front of the hoop to put pressure on the opponent. So it's just a question of judging the distance really. But stalking the ball, just lining up, I'm aiming to put it about 2 or 3 feet in front of the hoop. Well, that was a bit short, it could have been better, but it's still back reasonably close to the hoop and in a threatening position. A useful drill for practicing hitaways and also just making contact with other balls is to do this. Put 4 balls in a line, I put them on the boundary here, and then the other 4 balls in a diagonal line at different distances from the first ones. And the aim of the exercise is just to see how far the balls will go when they are hit from the balls on the boundary line. And the first thing to do perhaps is just to practice a little nudge. In golf croquet, little nudge shots are really quite important when you're wanting to put a ball perhaps just in front of a hoop. And so I'm just going to see if I can just nudge the red ball at a short distance with the black here. That sort of thing is, and getting the hang of the weight of the shot is important. And now a more powerful shot, which is going to put red some distance away. And as you see, that was a stop shot. The black stayed quite close to where it hit the red, and the red has gone more or less across to the other side of the lawn. So now I'm going to hit the yellow ball with the blue ball, and we'll see how far that goes. And the thing to know here is that the striker's ball, the blue, has gone further than the first striker's ball, the black, but the ball that was struck, the yellow, has not gone as far as the red. So we'll now try it again with the green and the pink. And finally the brown hitting the white. And you'll notice that the closer the balls were together when we began, the further the object ball has gone. The red went nearly across to the other side of the lawn. When you get balls close together, it's relatively easy to hit them away a long distance. It becomes more difficult as the spacing of the ball increases. And so the thing to notice is, look how far the various strikers' balls have gone. The black, which was the closest to the object ball, has stayed more or less where it was. The blue's gone a bit further, The green has gone even further still, and brown, because it was a dead straight hit, has stayed quite close to where the original object ball was, and those balls themselves have gone slightly varying distances. It depends, of course, on how hard you actually hit the ball, but also how straight you are in your contact. And as the range increases, it becomes much more difficult to get a dead-centered hit. And so you've got to expect that hit-aways with balls some distance away may not be exactly where you want them to go. So this is the end of our introductory module, Module 1. In the next few modules we're going to be looking in a bit more detail about certain aspects of golf croquet, some of the shots you can use and when to use them. But for now, thank you very much for watching.